development and strategic planning. She has worked and led teams in various countries in West Africa, Southeast Asia, and North America. Bernice has a BA in Environmental Studies from the American University and an MPA in Environmental Science and Policy Management from Columbia University. And this is just between you and me. She also worked with the Peace Corps for 3 years. So she's just incredible. I don't know how else to describe her. So, um, what else do I want to say? Okay. All right. So, we are discussing according to the Better Africa in Africa. So when I first saw the topic, I did a little bit of research on the startup ecosystem in West Africa and in Africa. Honestly, it wasn't right. All of the startups said half of them will fail, 1 in 10 of them will go bankrupt, and they gave all kinds of different scenarios, right? So estimated that Africa will create 54 million new jobs by 2022. 54 million. That's more, right? 54 million is an incredible number. But it's nowhere near enough to accommodate 122 million new job seekers. Africa has the youngest youth population, has the youngest population in the world. So by 2022, there will be 122 million people looking for jobs. Who is going to create these jobs? Between the government and the private sector, right? Let's start with, I'd like to hear from you, Shika. You are a young entrepreneur, so you graduated and you dived right in. So you graduated, you decided, I want jobs, I want to create impact, I want to live for this purpose and this vision. What was it like making that decision, and how receptive were people to you not going directly into working for others, but saying, I want to do this on my own? I have to speak up. It's working, but it's really low. Yeah.
Thank you. Decision. I think my decision wasn't as glamorous as you're making it sound. So mine was, I didn't start out to start a business. So it was just a hobby I was doing. And then eventually after service, I said, okay, let me try and see what's making of it whilst I wait for a job or look for a job opportunities. So along the line, I realized that, look, I enjoy doing this more than working in a regular office. So then I pursued it, and that's how it has been. But it wasn't very welcome, especially from my family. They felt like, going to school, you're going to do an executive program, you're going to do MBA, why do you want to now be like a regular woman, sort of? So it was a bit difficult. It still is sometimes. But I think that so far, and once they've seen what you're able to and the opportunities you're giving to other people, then they tend to understand that, okay, so you're doing something, even though it's not what they want you to do, it's something that you're impacting, so then they're very supportive now.
Okay. So it sounds almost as if there's a little bit of a stigma around entrepreneurship. We'll come back to that shortly. Bernice, you have an incredible professional history, project management, you work in Southeast Asia, Europe, West Africa. I know you have an incredible background. So what was it like giving these, I'm sure, incredibly well-paid jobs and prestigious positions? What was it like giving that up and starting Africa Goodness?
My parents still told me that I'll look for a full-time job because they still don't take it. But I think that I started African Goodness kind of like shaped it a little bit, felt like by accident, but it was a fun. And gradually, when I kept going through A levels, I decided to take it more seriously. Started business, to take it more seriously. But also the idea
interesting that both of you had situations where your parents, your family, and the people around you were wondering why you wanted to take this step into entrepreneurship. Where around the world it is such a catchphrase, almost the Silicon Valleys of the world, and all of these environments that are created to help young entrepreneurs be successful. It's almost like the end thing, right? Why is there such a negative perception around entrepreneurship? If the startup industry is the future of Africa, why is the word entrepreneur, businesswoman? It's almost like if you're an entrepreneur, you're a hustler, right? You don't want to take life seriously. Why do you think that perception exists? Why do you think the word entrepreneur is comes with all these very interesting synonyms for people?
Because it's challenging. It's a lot easier to find a job, work for somebody else, than to start something on your own. I think that the process of starting a business is one of the most emotionally draining processes I've ever gone through. Because you decide yourself for years. You question who you're going to, are you involved your skills into building something, creating something. And so it's harder. It's definitely harder. But one thing I didn't want to touch on is that
2013, the Ghana Investment Promotion Center Act was implemented, and there was a minimum amount of foreign investment at $200,000. Right. So if you have a foreign investor that wants to invest in your startup, they have to be coming in with a minimum of $200,000. Now, with acts like that are implemented in the name of supporting entrepreneurs. But if, for example, we have an investor coming in with 5,000 cedis, 5,000 Ghana cedis, so about $1,000, right? Some that might seem like very little to some, but for some, that can be the difference between collapsing and your business going on. So then you have to couch that investment as something that it isn't. In order, do you think that as a country, our laws, our government is really doing their best to support startups? I have a personal experience. I am currently dealing with GRA. You both talked about financing, and you may have situations where you are in an accelerator, you may have an investor who wants to come in and they are below the threshold. What do you think can be done in those situations to really create an enabling environment? So it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but what really, as an entrepreneur, do you need in order to get to that next level?
Okay. Um, okay, so I think there are about three things that we should consider. There should be a lot of private sector involvement. So we shouldn't leave everything to the government. For example, elsewhere, people are investing a lot more in their local businesses. So, for example, I have this money, Venice comes in to give support, and then we combine and collaborate, and then we come together. So instead of bootstrapping on my own, I don't have to wait for an investor to cough up that huge sum that I may not, like, even get anyway. So she brings her widow's mite, I add mine, and then it somehow adds up to make something tangible for us to start a business together. And then also about the investment cap on foreigners. I think that that is a way to safeguard against having businesses run by foreigners. But then I think it should be, brought down a little because investor support really helps African business, especially in the tech industry. Just recently, I was reading about Paystack. I'm sure you've heard the news. And they are so happy because now they've sold their business. They are still making money out of the business. And they can also start other businesses with whatever money that they have made from that sale. And that is possible because they have an enabling system. And in Ghana, how many stories like that do you hear? You hardly hear of someone saying, okay, an investor has bought or invested this much into a business in Ghana.
Right.
So if that is done, and then also local businesses that are local investors, people who are local Ghanaians, people who are Ghanaians or people living in Ghana who have money and can support local industries can also do that.
Yeah.
And then also I think accelerator programs also are able to help startup get grants and some loans from invest donor industries or venture capitals also. So that also could help so that then the burden on the government will be reduced. So if there's a lot of private sector involvement, it will help a great deal so that we don't have to depend so much on waiting on the government to support. And I think also since the COVID happened, there's been a lot of support system through the government. There's been, I think, NBSSI, and then there's also some fund, relief systems going on. So maybe we can make use of all those things, even though they're a bit difficult to get a hold on. We can try and see how these things also can support the businesses.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shika. And all of your experience and all of the training that you give startups is really showing here because you have very interesting insights. Benis, what do you think?
I don't think I can add more to what Shika has said beyond. Yeah, I've also noticed that in the past few months since COVID that there has been more funding available for small businesses. But I will say that shows that there is recognition that these small and medium enterprises are what fuel the economy. And it's nice to see that is being acknowledged.
Yeah. All right, wonderful. Now, Shika, you talked about the NBISS support for startups. I know the Impact program also had a relief program for startups. a lot of young people don't know that there are organizations giving out, and not just training support, which is vital, but are also giving physical cash to say, look, we know that you are probably really strapped because of COVID. Here is a couple of bucks to help your salaries, to help with your utility bills. What kind of opportunities do entrepreneurs tend to overlook the most because they think it's not important or because they think it will not add value to their company? What kind of opportunities should entrepreneurs start giving more attention to?
I think we should look for data. Like I said, we don't have a lot of access to information. Until recently, I didn't even know I could get tax breaks. I didn't know there was a tax break for people under 25 or 40 or something like that. And also, if you have a spouse or a child or something, you can get some tax breaks for that. So all this kind of information is not readily available, like you just go and look for it. You have to search deep. So if there's like easy access to this information on how to, for example, many people want to start a business and then they don't know what to do. Like the first thing to do, what's the next thing after that, what's the next thing after that. But if there's like one place you can go to, either in physical or on the virtual, on the internet or a shop or something, okay, then they tell you this is what you do, from here do this, do that. It's very easy and convenient for the person starting a business, rather than having to go to about 10 different government organizations before, and when you go, you don't even get the information you want. So that's something we overlook. We start and we make a lot of mistakes. Like I've made so many mistakes that I shouldn't have, because I didn't have that advisory. I didn't have that like foresight, to know that, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. Sometimes you lose out on money, deals, a whole lot of things just because you didn't know and you were ignorant about certain things. So access to data is very important that most people overlook. And then also, I think when you're starting a business, you should look for people who are already in the business and try to talk to them. That's something I didn't do. Try to talk to them, get the understanding of what you're about to enter into so that you don't make certain mistakes. So, for example, you can get an advisory board. You don't need to pay them. An advisory board is basically a few people who are experts at what they do in certain fields. You have them and you consult them periodically on an issue you lack understanding on, and they can support you in that direction. So we should look at having access to information, having people we can run to and seek advice from, and also we can have peer groups. So for entrepreneurs, like we are like islands on our own, pockets of islands. So I'm here. I didn't even know about you two until we decided to be here together. So if there was like a community, like I said earlier, communal support really helps. So if there's a community of say entrepreneurs in Accra in this industry, in maybe African products industry, so then all of us are in this one unit, and we know we can count on each other for support. All entrepreneurs in the audiovisual industry are also in one unit. We can count on each other for support. So all these things are things that we don't readily have. And then sometimes I find them to be lacking. And I think it can be changed, really. If you decided to start a community of people in your industry, you would have maybe about 10 people to support each other. If I did that, I would also have that. We could all have that, and it would help.
I will come back to something that you said, your second point, but I just want to hop on over to Bernice. Bernice, what kind of opportunities do you think entrepreneurs are overlooking the most?
Opportunities that entrepreneurs are overlooking. I would say, as a new entrepreneur myself, I think that I overlooked the importance of these communities, like the incubator programs, the mentorship programs. Coming from a professional background too, I think I was a little bit I think I had a little bit of swagger, thinking nobody can teach me anything new. But it isn't about that. It's about having the emotional support and giving you the where to go find the resources that you need. So that has been an indispensable amount of help to me, and through that, find communities within the framework of what I'm doing. And so everything you said about just having communities that can support you emotionally, give you mentorship and guidance. That's what I think people overlook.
Fantastic. So I just want to circle back to something that you said, which was having an advisory board and reaching out to people who have gone through the mill or who have these experiences. Now, in the process of doing research for this panel, there were quite a few articles that attributed the failure of startups to lack of long-term vision and lack of skills by the entrepreneurs themselves. So they were basically saying that the reason why a lot of startups failed was because the entrepreneurs themselves didn't have any management experience, they didn't have any finance experience, they didn't have, basically they didn't know what the hell they were doing outside of the idea that they had, right? Now you didn't work in a traditional organization before you launched your business. You did say that you've made a couple of mistakes, you've learned from them, you are still going. Bernice, you have gone through the mill and worked with all kinds of organizations. I have worked with both local and international organizations before starting my business, but I still made the mistakes, right? So just wanted to get your opinion on this. Do you think that it is important for an entrepreneur to work in a traditional, and when I say traditional, I mean a more established organization before launching their business, or do you think that is a journey worth taking when you feel like you are ready to?
I really don't think it has so much to do with where you start from. What matters to me, in my opinion, is where you're going and how you get there. I think the reason why most businesses fail is because there's no succession plan. For example, if I die, my business collapses. There's just an example. That's not going to happen. But so if a Ghanaian business owner dies, then that's the end of the business. And it has happened in most cases. There are so many examples that we can look at. But if they're a business that has a succession plan, so you know that even if this person is no longer there, whether through death or retirement, there are still people who can run the business and manage and sustain it so that it's still able to make profit. Like Apple, for example. The owner is no longer there, but they are still selling. They are still making profits, and it's still growing big. We don't have a lot of those stories in the African society. So if there's a succession plan for most businesses, they will thrive. And then also about the management, it's not really about having a professional experience. I think that it's more of, like I said, a community support. So if I lack skills in accounting, why don't I take someone who's an expert in that field and let them run? I don't have to run the accounting department, not just because I'm the owner.
Right.
I should be able to understand that is not my field. Let me let the accountant handle it, and I don't have to overload the whole thing. Right. Most African business owners will come and then they want to be the accountant, they want to be the field person, they want to be the, everything at once. And you can't do that. You should learn to delegate and still trust the people you have delegated to do the work. Even if they make mistakes, let them grow and then learn from it. Yeah. So those two things are things that, I think would help. Having a succession plan and learning to let go of certain things in the business so that you can focus on the main parts of the business. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Bernice, what do you think?
About professional skills or backgrounds?
About working in a traditional, you work for 10 years, you get the experience and networks, and then you launch your business versus launching when you're ready, you're good to go.
No, I don't think so. I don't think that the professional background necessarily dictates that whether or not you'll be successful. I don't. I think that I have the work that I was doing before really has nothing to do with what I'm doing now. But I will say that there are certain skills I like to think that I brought to Africa Goodness, which is in building partnerships and knowing who to kind of connect with. So I would say that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. This particular question, I just want to get some feedback from the audience. What do you think? From your I'm sure we have some entrepreneurs with us. What do you think? What do you think about the assertion that you are better off launching your business after you've worked traditionally for a while and you have an understanding of what it means to run a business versus just launching when you're ready, when you feel like your idea is mature enough to be released into the world? You can just wave. I'll bring the microphone to you. Do we have any business owners with us? Yes. All right. I will. Okay.
become a market leader, one should have got a long-term experience under one of the theories of entrepreneurship. To become a market leader, you should have acquired knowledge over a long period of time. And immediately one is able to have that long-term experience, one have a sustainable advantage. And if you are an entrepreneur and you don't want to work your hands on to get the managerial skills and experience, then you cannot be a market leader in your field. In summary, one become an expert after a long term of working as a manager, as an entrepreneur. So I think one should be working one's hands on before one can become a real entrepreneur. Thank you.
So I believe leverages in entrepreneurship can be gotten in so many ways. Traditionally, people work for some time in the corporate world and launch their own businesses just to get a leverage from network. Some people are good in working in corporate environments to get that leverage. Some people too can get that leverage outside of the corporate world. So traditionally, if you can go through that line, get your network outside of the corporate world, that's fine. If you think you need to enter into the corporate world to get your network, also that's fine. Also, some specific knowledge in entrepreneurship can be gotten only in the corporate world. For example, if you want to delve into, if you want to be an entrepreneur in aerospace engineering, it's very difficult to get that intellectual leverage outside of the industry. You need to enter and get it. But in other industries too, you can get that intellectual leverage outside of the corporate world. So depending on the industry you want to delve into, the kind of entrepreneurship you want to delve into in the specific industry, that will determine whether you need to enter into the corporate world or not. But most people wouldn't know this till they either go into it or not. But as we are learning, before you delve into a specific kind of entrepreneurship, you can make that research on your own to see whether you can leverage on knowledge or network outside or in the corporate world.
Thank you. Very insightful. Thank you. I agree with both your assertions, but I because I've had quite a few young women ask me this question. And this is from my personal experience. It's not based off of research, and I'm not saying this because it's factual, but personally, the experience that I had working in certain environments have gone a long way in helping me succeed as an entrepreneur. And even now that I am an entrepreneur, because of the experiences that I had, I'm able to work as a consultant in various capacities. And even as I do those, I find that, so for example, Benis, you know this. So I did communications consulting for the EU for a project across 3 countries. And working in communications at that level, when we have clients who now walk to us for certain kinds of communications, from that bird's eye view and from working in that capacity, even working in that capacity, I'm able to say that the plan that you've given us, we need to tweak this and we need to tweak that. And I think that we need to do this and we need to do that, right? So if there are even little things like, for example, I work with other vendors, so third-party vendors, and you ask for an invoice. And it's interesting that the invoice they would give you, if you see the invoice, you'll be very confused. Little things like send me an invoice, like send me a professional email. What you're saying is interesting. Send an email. There's no introduction. They've just sent an attachment in a blank email. They can't write an official letter. They come to you for sponsorship for something, and they can't phrase the concept properly. They can't speak properly. They can't put a proposal together. And of course, these are skills that you can learn on your own. But it's interesting that sometimes you don't know the skills you need to succeed until you are there. Right? So if you didn't know that you have to pay GRA taxes, if you are registered as a sole proprietor, you have to declare you have to come and declare your taxes, right? You have to go and say, this is what I earned this year, and then they'll say, okay, based on this, No one is going to come to you and slap taxes. They'll give you a self-assessment at the beginning of the year. But those are things that honestly, based on some conversations I've had within certain communities, I feel like sometimes they struggle just a little bit more. But then after about a year or two, they are good to go. Right?
Yeah,
Benis?
yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I do think that there are different types of entrepreneurs as well. The types of experiences you're talking about are highly professional and very corporate, but there are other entrepreneurs who may have different goals as well, and wanting, market women, for instance, and I don't think that if you walk up to the average market woman and you ask her, I'm assuming if you ask her, are you an entrepreneur, are you a businesswoman? She said, oh, me, no, I'm just selling this and that. But she's making a profit, and women have been known to build houses, support families on things like that. So I didn't want to discount also the types of work that other entrepreneurs are doing, just because maybe they're not looking to be international and just more localized. And I think that's perfectly okay as well.
Thank you both for your insights. I think we just have a few minutes left, so I wanted to give the audience the opportunity. Oh, we don't have any time. Not at all, not for the audience to contribute. Okay, all right. Thank you so much. I apologize for not giving you the time to speak. I thought we had a bit more time. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you, Benis, and thank you, Shika. You've been wonderful. And hopefully we'll have the opportunity to network outside of this conversation. All right. Have a good day. Thank you.
or is that not happening? Pause. Will you just continue?
Okay, so I went there. I can remember I went there just to cut the story short. I went there for more than 15 times just to meet this woman. The secretary would not allow me meet her because I didn't have any arrangement, any meeting, nothing. I just said I wanted to speak to her and tell her that I wanted a job. So there was one time she came. I was there. I usually just sit on the corridor. I go there every morning because I wanted a job. So I was sitting on the corridor, and then she came out from the office. So I just assumed that because she looked really neatly dressed and her purse and the bag and everything. So I rushed to her and I said, "Madam, I wanted to see you. I'll be here for a while." I was like, "Oh, I'm busy. Come tomorrow." So very luckily, the next morning when I went, because I more like had an appointment with her, she allowed me. The secretary allowed me to meet her, and then she was like, her secretary mentioned that I come a couple of times, but then to be fair, there's really no job for me. So, but she has an offer she could put on the table for me if I want. And I'm like, what's the offer? Then she told me she had her own restaurant in the trade fair, but then she really doesn't need an employee. She has her own daughter running the restaurant as a, I think a bartender at the time. And so what she can do for me is to offer me the job, but then not be able to pay me on a monthly basis and accumulate the money. And if I was ready to if I gain admission to uni, then she would transfer the money to me. I was like, yes, I don't mind at all. I mean, once I'll be able to get some money and take to uni, that's like totally fine with me. So I used that money to buy my first phone and then buy my first desktop. I think it was Pentium 2 at the time. This was 2005. Yeah. So I was really happy I was able to acquire these things because then my dad would not have that, leverage and say,
Okay.
"Hey, use your desktop very well. Your brother will use it after you, or why did you damage your phone?" I had total control. And I think that's what led me to start thinking about entrepreneurship because I felt like if I wanted to do something more and have more control, have more leverage, let me look into starting my own business. So everything started from second year university, 2007, 8 thereabout, where I attempted to start an internet cafe and then a remedial school. So that's how it started for me before I applied to Nest after
Sure.
national service. Yeah.
Okay, so let me just stay with you on a moment. So, I mean, I think what is also clear here is that you also started the habit of saving very early, which becomes very important when you're starting a startup and you need to put your own skin in the game and get your own money. So, so we know you went to Nest and then you guys kind of started Mikasa from there. What made you choose Mikasa as a solution? And what do you think helped you guys find your feet as a company?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So Nest allows you to explore, it allows you to, um, test different ideas. Mikasa wasn't our most exciting idea, to be honest. There was one idea that we were very excited about, but then we had to take a step back. And the investor was really excited about that idea. We called it Belbo. It's if we had built it, it would be like a virtual wardrobe um, for your clothes. So where you could invite friends to go into your wardrobe, give you ideas on what to wear for what events. You could also go into
Okay.
other celebrities' wardrobe. Imagine it, you could walk into maybe Beyonce's wardrobe and know what kind of clothes she has in there and all of that. And you could go to the shop. And I
She'll
mean, it
have
was a
some
very
she'll have some GGs.
yeah, it was a very exciting idea. The investor was excited about it, and I was very sure if we pitched that idea on our final day, we would have at least raised some $90,000 or $100,000 investment for it. But then we took a step back, and luckily I had very understanding co-founders. I have very understanding co-founders. We took a step back, and I told them, guys, let's reanalyze this idea. This is a business that will made me thrive in Ghana because this is 2000, it was around 2012, 13 thereabout. I mean, penetration was very low. We didn't think we were going to have enough money to build a really nice app because it had to look close to Instagram or function close to Instagram. And $100,000 or $90,000 was not going to work. And then thirdly, this is an idea that I think we need to bring in pay higher. So this is a fashion space industry. I am not, I don't have links. I really do not know that industry. I'm not really passionate about that industry. And so if we wanted to grow really well, we need to bring someone, either give them equity or pay them really well to do it. So clearly we're going to set up a field. So we have to go back to the fellows and yawn and tell them that we were not going to go with this idea purely based on these variables, not because we're not going to raise. The investor was really happy. You know, was really happy about the idea. There were lots of different use cases. So we have to drop that. And then we said, okay, now let's look at our strength and focus on the local business. And that's when the Mikasa idea came up. Yes, I had an experience myself. I think, again, based on that independence, after uni, I was looking for a single room. So I shared that experience. And then we said, I mean, this idea is not a new idea. So let's become agent. I became an agent. I understood the whole process. I looked at different models in different markets. And then we said, okay, this is a space that even though there are a lot of different competition, based on our own skill sets and the culture that we've learned over the period, we should have a better leverage to compete. So that's how come we picked
Okay, great. Yes, I mean, clearly you had some experience in that space and that allowed you guys to get a footing into the industry. Yeah, so I want to continue with the Rabina. And Rabina, so I want to, okay. So you guys have a very interesting story of how Where Ghana started and how it started and kind of like what was happening around you guys when it started. So if you could share that with us, because unlike, Kelvin and Mikasa, I mean, they went through an incubator, they went through MEST, they had a lot of training, they were able to get investment, to even start their company. What is your story for Where Ghana?
Okay, so the Where Ghana story starts sometime in 2008. In 2008, I was doing my national service with New York University's study abroad site here in Ghana. And I realized at the time that the students would come in from all over the world and leave, because they would come and do a study abroad here. And when they are leaving, one thing is for sure, they'll have a lot of African print clothing they are taking back with them. And at this time, I don't have even one thing that was made. So it got me wondering, what's going on? There's so much interest in this thing, and it doesn't look like we as the people, it's something that we value. But remember also that in 2008, President Kufuor, ex-President Kufuor, had introduced the National Friday Wear at some point. We were asked to come to work on Fridays in something African print. And so I started designing my clothes to go to the office with and realized that I really enjoyed it. And the feedback that I was getting was good. But I leave after service to join a financial institution. So I've started working. But there's still this seed that has been planted about, okay, what can we do with the fashion space? So at some point, my brother and I are thinking through, okay, the fashion space in Ghana, there's so much more that we could do. What can we do? So we're actually thinking about an event, a corporate event that will be staged maybe quarterly, where we would invite corporate Ghana, we would invite players like GTP, ATL, invite young fashion designers, bring them together and see what kind of businesses would start happening. And the name that we find for the business for this event is Where Ghana. So I registered it, but I'm still at the financial institution. And these stories are so long. I'm trying to find the abridged version.
Yeah, so maybe we could fast forward to when you registered Where Ghana.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Where Ghana is registered in 2012, but nothing much is happening with it. But by this time, through a friend who had bought some fashion books for me, I had started making clothing and designing also for my colleagues. And then in 2013, I had applied to join another bank. So I go for my interview, pick up the contract, it's really good. But then I realized that I don't feel fulfilled. Although the jump in my salary is good, I don't feel fulfilled. And so at that point, I realized this work Ghana thing that I've been playing with, because at that point it's a hobby. The company has been registered, but I'm not doing much with it. I'm making some clothes on the side for colleagues. And so I decided at that time that, okay, it's time to move in and do this full time. For my business partner, the story starts this way. She's working with a telco. She had an arts background. I have a science background. So she had done a bit of some arts. She's working with a telco. One day she ups and quits, goes to fashion school. And so around the same time where I have also decided that I'm going to stop working with the financial, like I'm leaving the financial industry, we come together and we launched the business. Like you rightly said, we didn't go through an incubator or anything like that. So for us, it was really a big experiment. And we are almost 7 years as well. We actually turned 7 come November 15th. And I remember November 15th, 2013, which is when we launched the business, like it was yesterday. And the way that we went about it was to create make a lot of noise on social media, get people talking about what's going on 15th November 2013. And I remember you are too.
Yes, I think I was there, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that you were there. So thank you so much for sticking with us for 7 years. But for us, it was a huge experiment. But one thing was for sure, we had come from the financial, I had this financial background. My business partner came from telco. So we knew we weren't coming into the space to build a small brand, a tabletop business.
So that's very interesting.
Yeah, we wanted to build a company that could sit toe to toe with the likes of MTN. And it's a vision that we are still pushing.
Okay. Yeah, because just to say, Ghana can organize a lot of bar camps, and we hear stories like, we have a lot of maybe university graduates or people who work who want to start, restaurants. And the argument is always that when they start their restaurant, they'll be better than the tabletop person because they have this kind of experience. So it's really interesting that you mentioned that. Yeah, so first I want to come over to you. So parlaying the points around, Arabna coming from the financial sector and her co-founder Angkor coming from the telco sector. Here we have Stanbic, incubator that works with, different startups. I know from your story, you were at Tech, you work on Hack Lab, you still continue to work on Hack Lab. So I want you to talk to us about how, entrepreneurs that come to the Stanbic incubator, how you help them set up to be like bigger brands, right? Or better startups from day one. And if you could also use the opportunity to tell us some of the startups that you guys work with. Maybe start with some of the startups you guys work with, and then how you give them the opportunity to do well from day one.
Okay, great. So thank you very much for the opportunity. At the Stanbic Incubator, well, let me go back to why we decided to set up an incubator as a financial service organization. So somewhere 2016, Stanbic Bank Ghana decided to set up an innovation center as part of their contribution towards supporting entrepreneurial development in Ghana. And this stemmed from Standard Bank Group, of which Stanbic Bank is a member of, motivation by the fact that SMEs now contributed significantly to GDP of Africa. And so the focus was now shifting from the multinationals and the big industries to the small businesses, the mom and pop shops that are evolving to become chains of businesses across the market and contributing significantly, as well as employing more people. So that vision stemmed from the group and cascaded down to country levels where Standard Bank has operations in. Currently, we operate in about on each country to come up with a unique model that fits their market. Right? So we went on an immersion across different, it started in South Africa, and then Mozambique followed, and a number of countries followed afterwards. Ghana is one amongst 11 SB incubators in Africa now, and we are hoping to have incubators across all 20 markets where we have operations in. So eventually building a network of incubators. So when I joined Stanbic Bank in 2017, my task was to learn about the ecosystem and try to build a model that made sense and fits well with the ecosystem. So after engaging about 20 to 30 hubs, learning about what they've been doing, identifying what challenges they were facing, also talking to entrepreneurs, and me being an entrepreneur myself, I realized that the unique thing about the financial service organization is the fact that it sits at the nucleus of the ecosystem, right? When you consider the Maslow's theory of needs, and in today's world, financial inclusion plays a significant role at the base of the pyramid. And that means businesses and individuals all need financial service organizations as part of their day-to-day needs and wants. So we play a significant role in a sense that we get to know who has opportunity and who needs opportunity. We also play a significant role in a sense that we are able to, we work directly with national government institutions, government agencies, private corporate institutions, multinationals, SMEs, startups, high net worth individuals, etc., etc. And so we are able
Okay.
to listen and identify who needs what and who has what. And so this brought us to develop what we call our four pillar strategy, which focuses on ideation, incubation, high growth acceleration, and value chain integration. I'll spare us the details of the ideation, incubation, and high growth acceleration and talk about the value chain integration. So you realize that as entrepreneurs churn out, two major challenges they face amongst the many other is access to finance and access to market, right? So if you give them all the enabling skills and the resources they need and they don't have the money to produce, then they would die. If you give them the money to produce and they don't have the market to serve, they will still die. And so we decided to tackle these two major issues, right? So beyond designing initiatives that help people move through the idea construction stage to incubating their ideas and finding the right people, we decided to leverage the strengths of the bank as a 20-year-old Ghanaian bank, which started in 1999 and part of a group that has existed for 158 years with a legacy, structure, and culture very rich and attractive enough. We decided to pick learnings from there, also leverage our internal resources and our relationships with other corporate institutions to build a formidable model that not only serves our incubator and its beneficiaries, but also serves other incubators that may want to collaborate with us to leverage our resources. Today, we
Okay.
boast of Today, we boast of our staff mentorship program, our staff volunteer mentoring program, where over 200 of our employees out of about 1,200 of them have volunteered to spend at least 5 hours of their time every month to coach businesses in the incubator, right? Now, when we conducted a survey during the design of this program, we realized that the employees in the organization had expertise in about 48 disciplinary areas. And this cuts across different types of industries, different parts of running a business, from starting a business to running the business to sustaining the business to expanding the business. And so we decided to categorize our mentors into these various groups and try to leverage their expertise to support the entrepreneurs in our incubator. So you realize that we do not run very conventional activities like the other incubators. We like how you run cold calls,